What if I told you that in 1978, Muhammad Ali walked into one of America's most violent prisons and came face to face with a notorious white supremacist gang leader who called him a traitor to America? And what if I told you that what Ali said next was so powerful, so profound, that it made this hardened criminal abandon his life of hate and become a civil rights activist? This wasn't just a prison visit. This was a moment when love conquered hate in the most unlikely place imaginable. October 15th, 1978. Folsom State Prison, California. The maximum security facility housed some of America's most dangerous criminals. Gang violence was routine. Racial tensions ran so high that different ethnic groups couldn't even eat in the same areas. And in the middle of this powder keg, the warden had made an unprecedented decision: invite Muhammad Ali for a prison visit. "Are you sure about this, warden?" asked Deputy Miller as they prepared for Ali's arrival. "Some of these inmates, especially the white gangs, they see Ali as a traitor. This could get ugly fast." Warden Robert Hayes had been running Folsom for 8 years. He'd seen riots, stabbings, and every form of violence imaginable, but he believed in rehabilitation, and he thought maybe, just maybe, Muhammad Ali could reach these men in a way no one else could. What the warden didn't know was that one particular inmate had been planning for this moment. Tommy the Hammer Kowalski, 34 years old, serving 25 years for armed robbery. Kowalski was the undisputed leader of the Aryan Brotherhood faction at Folsom, commanding the fear of over 200 white inmates. Raised in Detroit by a racist factory worker, Kowalski had been running with white supremacist groups since age 16. His path to prison was paved with violence and hatred so deep it had consumed his entire identity. "Brothers," Kowalski addressed his inner circle the night before Ali's visit. "Tomorrow that race traitor Muhammad Ali is coming to our house. He thinks he's going to inspire us, rehabilitate us. But I got something else planned." The plan was simple: publicly humiliate Muhammad Ali in front of the entire prison population. Show the black inmates that their hero was just another man who could be broken. The next morning, Muhammad Ali arrived at Folsom State Prison. He was 36 years old, his boxing career winding down, his speech already showing early signs of what would later be diagnosed as Parkinson's disease. But his presence was still magnetic. Even the hardest prisoners stopped what they were doing when he walked through the yard. The warden had arranged for Ali to speak in the prison chapel, a neutral space where all races could gather. As Ali entered, the room was packed with over 400 inmates. The tension was electric. Black prisoners sat on one side, white prisoners on the other. It was like a racial powder keg waiting for a spark. Tommy Kowalski sat in the third row, surrounded by his crew. His plan was simple: wait for Ali to start talking about peace and brotherhood, then stand up and call him out in front of everyone. "Good afternoon, gentlemen." Ali began, his voice carrying easily through the chapel. "I want to thank Warden Hayes for inviting me here today. I know some of you might be wondering why a boxer is standing in a prison chapel talking to you." A few inmates chuckled. The atmosphere was tense but respectful. "I'm here because I believe every man, no matter what he's done, no matter where he comes from, has the capacity for greatness. I'm here because I believe in second chances, and I'm here because I know what it feels like to be locked up." That got everyone's attention. Muhammad Ali had never been to prison. Some of you might be thinking, this rich famous guy doesn't know what we go through. And you'd be partly right. I've never been behind bars like you, but I've been imprisoned by other things. I've been imprisoned by my own anger. I've been imprisoned by other people's hatred, and I've learned something important. The worst prison isn't made of bars and walls. It's made of hate. That's when Tommy Kowalski made his move. He stood up abruptly, his presence commanding immediate attention throughout the chapel. "Hold up right there," Kowalski said, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You want to talk about hate? You want to talk about prison? Let me tell you something, Muhammad Ali." The chapel went dead silent. Every guard tensed up. This was exactly what they'd been afraid of. You stand there talking about brotherhood and second chances. But where were you when real Americans were fighting and dying in Vietnam? You were hiding behind your religion, running from your duty to your country. The racial divide in the room became instantly visible. Black inmates shifted uncomfortably. White inmates watched their leader with pride. You're not a hero, Kowalski continued, his voice rising. You're a traitor, you're a coward, and you don't belong here talking to real men about courage and character. The warden started to intervene. But Ali raised his hand, signaling for him to wait. Muhammad Ali looked directly at Tommy Kowalski, and instead of anger or defensiveness, there was something else in his eyes. Compassion. What's your name, brother? Ali asked quietly. I'm not your brother, Kowalski spat. My name's Tommy Kowalski and I run things for white men in this place. Tommy Kowalski, Ali repeated, letting the name settle. Can I ask you something, Tommy? What put you in here? Armed robbery, assault, and I'd do it again. And before that? What put that anger in your heart? The question caught Kowalski off guard. He'd expected an argument, a confrontation. He hadn't expected this gentle inquiry into his pain. That's none of your business, Kowalski said. But there was less venom in his voice. Maybe not, Ali agreed. But I'm going to tell you what I see when I look at you, Tommy. I see a man who's been hurt. I see someone who learned to hate because somebody taught him that hating was easier than healing. The chapel was absolutely silent now. Even the guards were transfixed by what was happening. You called me a coward, Ali continued. And maybe you're right. Maybe refusing to go to Vietnam was cowardly. But let me ask you something, Tommy. What's more courageous, fighting an enemy across the world, or fighting the enemy inside your own heart? Ali took a step closer to where Kowalski stood. You want to know about prison, Tommy? I spent 3 years banned from boxing. I lost millions of dollars. I was hated by half of America, but I learned that the worst prison isn't made of concrete and steel. It's made of anger and hatred. We lock ourselves in that prison and throw away the key. Tommy Kowalski was still standing, but his aggressive posture was softening. Something in Ali's words was reaching him. You run things for white men in this place, Ali continued. But who runs you, Tommy? Who's got you so locked up in hate that you can't see past skin color to see heart? For the first time, Kowalski didn't have an answer. I see a man who's been hurt, Ali said gently. Someone who learned to hate because somebody taught him that hating was easier than healing. Deep down, there's a man who's tired of being angry all the time. The emotion in the chapel was palpable. Hardened criminals, men who hadn't shown vulnerability in years, were moved by what they were witnessing. You want to know the difference between physical prison and the prison of hate? Ali asked. Physical prison has an end date. You can serve your time, pay your debt, and walk free. But the prison of hate? That's a life sentence you give yourself. Ali walked closer to Kowalski, close enough to speak directly to him. Tommy, you've got power in here. You've got men who follow you. But what are you leading them to? More hate, more violence, more of the same pain that brought all of you here in the first place. Kowalski looked around the chapel. For the first time, he really saw the faces of the men watching him. Black men, white men, Hispanic men, all of them trapped in the same place, all of them carrying the same pain. I don't know how to be anything else, Kowalski said quietly, and for a moment, the hardened gang leader sounded like a lost child. That's the first honest thing you've said since I got here, Ali replied with a gentle smile. And that's where freedom begins, Tommy. With honesty, Ali turned to address the entire chapel now, but his words were clearly meant for Kowalski. Gentlemen, I want to tell you something that changed my life. The real fight isn't against the man who looks different from you. The real fight is against the voice in your head that tells you that different means dangerous. The real fight is against the fear that makes you build walls instead of bridges. He paused, letting that sink in. Every man in this room made choices that brought him here. Some of those choices were born out of anger, some out of desperation, some out of circumstances beyond your control. But here's what I know. Every day you wake up, you get to choose who you want to be that day. Ali looked directly at Tommy Kowalski. Tommy, you've got a choice to make. You can keep being the king of a kingdom built on hate, or you can become a leader who shows other men there's a different way to live. The chapel was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. All eyes were on Tommy Kowalski, waiting to see how he would respond. For a long moment, Kowalski just stood there, processing everything he'd heard. Then slowly something began to change in his face. The hard mask of hatred began to crack, and underneath it, you could see the man he'd been before prison, before the gang, before the hate consumed him. "What if I told you," Kowalski said, his voice breaking slightly, "that I don't remember how to be anything but angry?" "Then I'd tell you," Ali replied, "that anger is just love that's been hurt, and love can heal." What happened next shocked everyone in that chapel. Tommy Kowalski, the most feared man in Folsom State Prison, began to cry. Not the angry tears of frustration, but the deep, soul-cleansing tears of a man who had been carrying too much pain for too long. Muhammad Ali didn't hesitate. He walked over to where Kowalski stood and embraced him. The sight of the former heavyweight champion holding the white supremacist gang leader while he cried was something none of the 400 men in that chapel would ever forget. "I'm tired," Kowalski whispered into Ali's shoulder. "I'm so tired of being angry all the time." "Then stop," Ali said simply. "Just stop. Right here, right now. Choose something different." When they separated, Tommy Kowalski looked out at the faces in the chapel. Some of his own gang members looked confused, even angry at their leader's display of emotion. But others, men from all races, were nodding in understanding. "I want to say something," Kowalski announced to the room. His voice was still shaky, but it was stronger than before. "I've spent my whole life hating people I didn't even know. I've led other men down the same path. And for what? To feel powerful, to feel safe." He paused, gathering his courage. "Muhammad Ali is right. The real prison isn't this place. It's the hate we carry around, and I'm tired of being locked up." The impact rippled through Folsom for years. Within a week, Kowalski disbanded his gang and requested protective custody. He began attending educational programs, reading about civil rights, corresponding with Ali about Islam and peace. 2 years later, when a race riot erupted, it was Kowalski who stepped between fighting groups and negotiated peace. The same man who had incited violence was now preventing it. In 1985, after 12 years, Kowalski was granted parole. His first stop wasn't his old neighborhood. It was Muhammad Ali's home in Michigan. "I wanted to thank you," Kowalski told Ali. "Not just for that day in the chapel, but for the letters, for never giving up on me, for showing me that it's never too late to choose love over hate." Ali, whose speech was more affected by Parkinson's by then, smiled and embraced his unlikely friend. "Tommy," Ali said slowly but clearly, "you did all the hard work. You made the choice. You opened your heart. I just reminded you that you had one. Today, the Tommy Kowalski Foundation helps former gang members leave lives of hate behind. It starts with one moment of honesty," Kowalski says. "When you admit hate isn't making you stronger, it's making you prisoner." The story reminds us that transformation is possible at any age, that love can conquer hate in the most unlikely places. In that chapel at Folsom on October 15, 1978, 2 men found common ground in shared humanity. By the time Ali left, both had learned the truth that sets all prisoners free. We are not defined by our worst moments, but by what we choose to do next.